Hey, everybody, welcome back to this episode of Think Business Live. Looking forward to talking with Mohammad Anwar, CEO of Softway and author of Love as a Business Strategy. He's also co-creator and facilitator of the Seneca Leaders Training Experience, which we'll get into. Mohammad, it's great to connect with you, and I'm looking forward to talking about a lot of what you do. But I want to start off with awareness and consciousness, because I think that really kind of leads the way in topics like we're going to be talking about today. I mean, when we're talking about love as a business strategy, there's so much that goes into that, but backing into it, right? Before we could even go, as we reverse engineer, talk to me about how somebody even becomes aware that that's where they need to even be looking as a business strategy.
No worries. So, John, first of all, thank you for having me on the
Thank you so
podcast.
much.
I'm excited to be here. So let's start off with the whole self-awareness conversation. And the way we define self-awareness, especially for leaders, is the identification of how I think I am being experienced by others versus how others are actually experiencing me. That gap of what I think people are experiencing me as versus how they're actually experiencing defines the level of self-awareness. The lesser the gap is, the more self-aware a leader becomes. And the larger the gap is, the lack of self-awareness they have. And that's a crucial component for leaders to go on a journey to help lead their organization and lead people, because most of the times leaders and humans in general, we have cognitive dissonance. We believe we are better than who we truly are, or what we're truly good at. For example, I believe I'm a better football player than I really am. And same thing with leaders and businessmen and women. We believe we are better than what we really end up being. And so the more we can reduce the gap of self-awareness, the better approaches and solutions and ideas that we can come up with to really make a difference.
So how do we start to narrow that gap? How do we know where our where our gap is, right? So again, just talking about awareness and self-awareness, I'm a big fan. I mean, I'm a business coach. I have a business coach. I have mentors. I have, a therapist. I mean, it's like, how do we get to that stage?
Sure. So first of all, you have to be very intentional about it. And that starts with intrinsically, you have to learn to introspect, be able to go through introspection and trying to understand your inner voice and how you behave, why you act, why do you do things the way you do them, plus the external factor, which is feedback. And when you are able to gather feedback from trusted folks who are not willing, who are willing to be honest with you and give you the feedback you need to hear, when you take those two components of how I am able to see my inner self and why I do and how I think I'm coming across versus getting the feedback from others as to how they're truly experiencing me, I'm able to start to build self-awareness. I'm able to see the gap and I'm able to start working towards reducing that gap. And that information is critical to start your journey of self-awareness.
Yeah. So I love talking about self-awareness, and meditation has been a huge piece for me to grow my self-awareness. So I'd like to talk a little bit about meditation. I will get into your business and the book and all of that, but meditation to me has been a huge element. Learning, as you're saying, kind of like listening to your inner voice. But I think the first step is sometimes quieting the voice before you can understand which voice to listen to, right? Because we all have kind of in our heads our dad's voice, our mom's voice, our aunt's voice, our grandparents' voice. It's like quieting the brain, the mind, the nervous system, so we can hear the right voices. Can you kind of talk on that for a moment?
No, absolutely. So I do agree. It is very difficult to get to an introspective stage unless you have the ability to quiet all of the elements around you. For me personally, at least this is what I follow, is I work out to try to introspect. So when I'm working out every evening and I am away from all of my distractions, away from all of the elements that usually can distract me, I'm able to start thinking through my day. How did I do? How did I behave? How do I think that meeting went? Was I the leader I wanted to be? How do you think other people could have perceived me? So I'm able to go through that journey of introspection while I'm working out and I'm in my element. And it's kind of active meditation, if you want to call it,
Yeah.
but that's kind of how I try to work through the introspective journey for myself.
Yeah. How do you, okay, so now we're on this path, inner voice, you're in the moment, right? You're becoming introspective and you're starting to see yourself. Now let's just talk about how someone then evolves that and responds versus reacts in the moment when they need to really live and be in the moment of the work, right? Not be
Sure.
thinking about the work, but in the moment of the work. And
Yeah.
so tell me your thoughts on that.
Sure, absolutely. So as you get better and better at practicing introspection, you start to get to a stage of living out self-awareness in almost real time. Almost
Yeah.
instantaneously, you will recognize yourself doing things or saying things that you're immediately like, wait a minute, no, wait, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have acted like that. I need to correct myself. So as you go through this practice of building self-awareness, you are able to recognize in real time moments that, hey, I'm getting triggered. I want to say this, but I shouldn't.
Right.
And so forth. So that's one way. As you
Right.
start practicing and your self awareness gap reduces, you start to recognize your inner self and what you want to say and how you feel. And you're able to respond instead of reacting. Another technique that I have started to utilize to really help ensure that I don't react and I do indeed respond is that I have started to assume good intent when I am in interactions with people and they bring me bad news and they bring me news that I don't want to hear. Instead of me assuming bad intent, I try to assume the best of the intent of the other party. And when I do so, I'm able to remain calm and be able to think through how I want to respond instead of reacting, which is something
Yeah.
that I was terrible at doing in the past few years.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big fan that children react and adults respond. And so training ourselves to do that is definitely in art. Do you watch Ted Lasso, Mohammed?
Yes, absolutely. I love that show.
Yeah, it's the best show on the air. I feel like I've been talking about Ted Lasso for many, many weeks and incorporating it kind of into my coaching. But there is as a business coach, whether I'm talking to somebody who's a solopreneur or a
Mhm.
Fortune 100 company or anything in between, most people have watched Ted Lasso. And I always point to the dart scene of be curious, not judgmental. And so
Mhm.
that's what I'm thinking of when you're talking about like the intent of grounding ourselves in when Ted Lasso was like, "What? Nobody ever asked me, this, and nobody else ever asked me that." And so, I love what you're talking about. All right, let's talk about you, your book, your
Yeah.
business. You're a technology company that is helping change cultures, and so,
Yes.
you've grown the company to over 200 employees. So let's talk about what exactly you do as a company and how the technology really changes a culture, because I think changing a culture is very, very difficult,
Mhm.
right? Evolving
Yes.
a culture is very difficult, and many times it's because of the leaders and things of that nature. But let's kind of talk about your technology, and then we'll kind of work from there.
Sure. So to set it up a little bit, I have to share a little bit of history. So I'm going to go
Yeah,
through it pretty
please.
quickly. So we started our company 18 years ago when I was in college pursuing my computer science degree. And we were a traditional technology firm. And in about 10 years of leading the company, I had reached what I believe the catapult of success. I was leading the life of an entrepreneur. I had over 300 employees, flying my planes, driving my fancy cars. And in 2015, I almost lost my entire business. And I had to go through layoffs. I had to lay off more than 100 employees at the time. And in a moment of introspection, I was able to recognize and realize that our company was in jeopardy, not because of external factors or market conditions, but it was because of my behaviors.
Hmm.
As a CEO, as a leader, I was incredibly selfish and I cared only about myself and not about the people of the company. Fortunately, I had the opportunity to go through my own transformation journey. And as a result, our culture transformed. Our other leadership also began to follow me on a journey of leading with love. And as a result, not only did we survive, but we thrived. And we saw our biggest clients saw a noticeable change in our organization and our output and our performance, so much so that they asked us to come in and help them with their culture.
Yeah.
And we were like, hey, we're a technology firm, we don't do culture services. And to that effect, they responded, look, we worked with the big four consulting firms, nothing ever sticks. Our leaders go to training, come back, and they're the same. Our culture hasn't transformed. We really like what you've done with your company, and we'd like to see a similar change for our leaders and our culture. So we began to do some work with them, and it became pretty successful. And we traveled the whole world helping transform a 10,000 employee business unit with 1,200 leaders. And as a result, we found our new calling, which was to bring back humanity to the workplace. We realized why we were in business. So, to take our technology experience and our capabilities, we wanted to put it to good use and figure out how do we bring back humanity to the workplace. And so we began building culture products and solutions that can help scale a good culture across organizations
Yeah.
based on our philosophy and our approach of lived experiences and introspection. And we lead not from an academic lens and case study laden approaches, but our own lived experiences.
Yeah.
We speak leader to leader through our apps, through our communication, through our facilitated experiences, to let other leaders recognize that they too have opportunities to introspect, build self-awareness, and become a better leader. And we do that by sharing our own stories. And that's been our approach. And that's how we got into this business. And we have a multitude of self-paced experiences and through digital products and facilitated
Yeah.
experiences where we come and host sessions with leaders.
I love everything that you talked about. A couple things is, I'm a big believer we teach our pain, right? And we have to go through the struggle in order to come out the other side. And I'm also a big believer that 95% of a culture is how the leader moves, walks, and talks, right? That sets the tone, that influences the other leaders, the managers, the salespeople. It all trickles down. So I appreciate your story, and I appreciate that you shared it. I remember the moment I changed my leadership. Kind of two things kind of happened simultaneously at the same time. I started an internet company when I was 23 with my brother and a buddy of ours, and we sold it when I was 25. And I remember it's like you start to kind of lose yourself a little bit, not on purpose, but just because everything's moving so fast in the space, and we were working 100 hours a week. That's no excuse. But I remember two instances. One, I saw the movie Hook, and Robin Williams forgot he was Peter Pan. And then Wendy says to him, Peter, you've turned into a pirate. And that resonated with me because I had felt like I turned into a little bit of a pirate, not intentionally. And then I read a book called Seed of the Soul that talked about, by Gary Zukav, that talked about the ideal human being. Basically, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, is when the personality ends and the soul begins, and you can't really tell. And I thought,
Nice.
I'm out of alignment. And I remember those moments getting myself back into alignment. And it was great. So I love what you're teaching. It makes me think of, and I want to go more into what you're talking about, but I'm not a yeller. And I find that in many organizations, one of the things that hurts organizations in a big way are leaders, owners specifically, who yell, raise their voice, lose their temper, because that lingers, right? It lingers in the walls. I see it. Again, it doesn't matter if it's a solopreneur, a company of 10 or less people, or a Fortune 100 company or anything in between. A yeller and a screamer, someone who loses their temper. How does that, from your perspective, shift a culture?
Sure. So first of all, I can categorize myself as one of those yellers and screamers that lost his temper quite frequently. And while that is probably the most prominent type of behavior that people might associate with bad cultures and bad environments, and that does have lasting consequences, actually, what we've noticed in having worked with a lot of the leaders across these big corporate organizations is that what's more hurtful is apathy and disassociation, where leaders don't say anything and resort to ignoring other parties and don't speak the truth and choose harmony over honesty. It has actually have more dire consequences to the culture of the organizations, because leaders are unable to speak the truth because they are fearful of being perceived as someone who creates an environment of not being nice, and they choose nice cultures over real cultures where we can speak honestly and have honesty over harmony. So while I'm not advocating for yelling and screaming, I also don't advocate for the converse of that, which is
No, I agree with
leaders
that.
are afraid to speak. So
Yeah.
we need that balance
Yeah.
of being able to not being a jerk, but also not being so nice that you don't have honest conversations. You need to practice what we call tough love.
Yeah.
And very similar to how Ted Lasso or football coaches might practice, they love their players, they love their team so much so that the team respects and appreciates honest conversations. And what can be perceived as being tough or rude sometimes, when you have the right culture and support of one another, then people will receive that as feedback for what it is, and honesty when
No,
it
I'm a
really
big
matters the
believer. Yeah.
most. Yeah.
I'm a big believer in that. I mean, realness, firmness, accountability, authority, all of that. I mean, you need to
Sure.
be able to, I see it in organizations, like absolutely be able to talk about tough things. No,
Yep.
100%. And so, let's talk about a little bit about the book. So
Yes.
what is the reader going to get from the book?
Well, first of all, this is meant to be a business book, but unlike other business books where we speak theoretical topics or case studies and very academic lens of leadership in business, we focus on sharing true, vulnerable, lived experiences with actionable takeaways for the reader to see themselves in our stories and understand how they can improve their leadership styles. And we do that by being very vulnerable, very open, and honest in our book about our failures and about our mistakes. And as a result, the book teaches you not through just academics or science, but through someone's true lived experiences, and you're able to take that and see yourself in it and come up with commitment to transform your leadership. So the book is a
Mhm.
very good self-help book if you're an individual aspiring leader or a leader of a corporation, but also gives you a very good framework as to what you can do to set up an organization with a culture that sets you up for high performance and high
Yeah.
reliability.
I love it. And a company who's looking to bring on your services, as far as the technology, tell me a little bit about how does somebody start working with you?
Yeah, so absolutely. So we have a suite of products, culture products, but that they can evaluate and learn about on our website, softway.com, and or culture-plus.com. And we also have a lot of opportunities to experience your Seneca Leaders program if you're an aspiring leader looking to learn leadership skills and approaches to lead your organization with love and better influence. We also host some free mini sessions where we give people an opportunity to experience our training session. So you're happy to go look at it, learn about it, sign up for some free sessions on Seneca Leaders, and also learn about our products so that you can bring it to your own organization and hopefully build an organization of honesty or harmony, but also influence and high performance.
I love it. I love it. All right, you ready for a quick speed round, Mohammed?
Let's do it.
All right. Your favorite book and why?
When Millennials Take Over. That's a big book for me because when I was going through my journey in 2015, 2016, that book had a profound influence on the way I would think.
It sounds like a great book. It sounds like a great
Yes.
book. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Look for the good in others and focus on the weakness of
Mm,
yourself.
that's a good one. Finish this sentence. One thing every company seems to miss when it comes to culture is.
Lack of focus on behaviors. They focus too much on values and promises and less on actual behavior change.
and a solution to evolve that is?
To build self-awareness and allow everyone to go on their journey of behavior change so that you might aspire to build the culture you ultimately desire.
All right. Define yourself in one word.
Humble, if I can be.
And tell everybody again who your ideal clients are and how they can connect with you.
So, any organizations or businesses, small, medium, or large, looking to use culture as a competitive advantage, we would be happy to work with you, serve you, take your organization a journey of culture transformation, especially in this post COVID environment, so that you can definitely influence all of your strategies to be successful. Because when you invest into culture, you can more than likely see your strategies coming to fruition. So, culture
Love
as a
it.
competitive advantage, call us.
All right. And you can buy your book on Amazon.
Yes, Amazon,
Right.
or you can go to our website, loveasabusinessstrategy.com. We also have quite a few resources that accompany the book that you can use immediately if you wanted to take on some actionable steps.
Awesome. Well, Mohammed, I appreciate you being on the show. I appreciate you sharing your journey. I appreciate you writing the book. I appreciate, what you're doing to not only grow cultures, but what you're doing to help leaders, because the effect that that has on an entire company and people, and those people then going home to their families, it really has, a beautiful, um, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? It has a beautiful continuum with it. So I appreciate it. Thanks for your taking time to be on the show. Think community. If Mohammed can help you, please reach out to him. And all this info will be on my website as well. Mohammed, thank you so much. Think community. Appreciate you all. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, man.
Thank you. Thank you, John.